Everyone always thought he would remain in the background, quietly standing by Princess Anne's side without a single complaint. For years, Sir Timothy Laurence has been known as a symbol of devotion and discretion within the royal family. But now, a shocking revelation from the man himself, the loyal husband of Princess Anne, has stunned the royal circle. No one saw this coming. And you might be surprised too. Can you guess what's about to be revealed? If you can comment. 1. If not comment, 0 below. Don't forget to share your thoughts, hit follow, and join us as we uncover the untold secrets of the British royal family. For years, he quietly observed all the power struggles and behind-the-scenes rivalries unfolding behind the palace doors. But only recently, he broke his silence and revealed a dark secret about Queen Camilla, a truth that could completely change the public's perception of her. So what is that secret? Why did it take so many years to come to light? And how deeply will this revelation shake the royal family's already fragile relationships? This is a layered and complex story between two royal women. Imagine two women living within the same royal family yet completely different in personality and behavior. This is the portrait of Princess Anne and Queen Camilla, two women who have never shared a close or warm relationship. Their connection isn't bound by affection, but by years of simmering tension, wary glances, and an unspoken rivalry that has never truly ended. The rift between them didn't begin suddenly. It has been smoldering for decades, tracing back to a tangled romance in the 1970s. At the time, Princess Anne was deeply involved in a romantic relationship with Andrew Parker Bowles, the man who would later become Camilla's husband. Although the two couldn't marry due to Andrew being Catholic, a faith that conflicted with royal protocol at the time, their relationship was believed to be genuinely heartfelt. In 1973, Andrew and Camilla reunited and got married. From that point on, Anne was visibly uncomfortable with Camilla's presence. The woman who had married the man Anne once deeply loved, frequently appearing at events in Buckingham Palace. But things didn't stop there. Nearly 3 decades later, Camilla went on to marry Prince Charles, Anne's younger brother. This overlapping relationship made it impossible for Anne to truly accept Camilla's presence within the royal family. According to those close to the palace, Camilla often felt pressured and overshadowed by Princess Anne's strong-willed and determined personality. For years, Camilla tried to keep her distance, even avoiding contact with her sister-in-law. However, tensions reached a boiling point during King Charles's coronation. At that time, Camilla expressed her desire to be called Queen rather than the traditional title of Queen Consort. This deeply angered Princess Anne. She firmly asserted that Camilla was not a queen in the true sense and should only be addressed by the correct title of Queen Consort. The conflict escalated, and although both always maintained a polite demeanor in public, anyone could sense the chilling tension between them that was impossible to hide. Many years after her relationship with Andrew ended, Princess Anne found happiness with Sir Timothy Laurence, a former Royal Navy Vice Admiral known for his calm demeanor discipline and avoidance of the media spotlight. They married in 1992 in a simple yet dignified ceremony. It was Sir Timothy, quietly supporting his wife behind the scenes, who held one of the royal family's biggest secrets. Having served the nation for many years, and possessing a clear-eyed view of what happens behind the royal family's glamorous facade, he discovered something no one else dared to speak about. This secret not only shook the royal family's inner circle, but also had the potential to undermine the public image that people had long trusted about Queen Camilla. Since joining the royal family, Sir Timothy Lawrence's role as Princess Anne's husband has always been clear, quietly protecting and supporting his wife, serving the monarchy, and steering clear of any scandal or power struggles within the palace. He is a man of disciplined responsibility and never lets emotions dictate his actions. However, by 2025, Timothy realized he could no longer stay out of the situation. What he witnessed within the royal family, especially from Queen Camilla, could no longer be ignored. At first, Timothy thought Princess Anne's criticisms of Camilla were simply due to his wife's naturally strong-willed and tough personality. But over time, he began to see that something was wrong. Camilla wasn't just someone who annoyed others. She seemed to act with calculated intent, carefully taking each step as if climbing a preordained ladder of power. When piecing together the events of the past, Timothy began to see how suspiciously everything fit into place. Camilla's affair with Prince Charles years ago not only shattered his marriage to Princess Diana, but also triggered a series of serious consequences, from the highly publicized divorce to Diana's heartbreaking tragedy. While the public may have varied perspectives for Princess Anne, who always places honor, duty, and family above all else, what Camilla did was unforgivable. According to Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's former husband, he confided in Timothy that Camilla had once neglected her own children to focus on inserting herself into the relationship between Charles and Diana. For Anne, this only reinforced her belief that Camilla was never truly fit to represent the core values of the royal family. But what's happening now is what truly worries Timothy. In recent years, as King Charles's health began to show signs of decline, Timothy has noticed a clear shift in Camilla's attitude and behavior. She no longer plays the role of the steady support she once claimed to be. In contrast, during royal meetings, internal events, and even family dinners, Camilla began speaking on Charles's behalf, offering opinions and steering discussions. For Timothy, who served in the military as a Royal Navy Vice Admiral, he clearly sensed a change in her demeanor. From a supportive wife, Camilla was positioning herself as a leader, as if preparing for the role of a true queen, going beyond the traditional boundaries of a queen consort. Especially Timothy noticed that Camilla began intervening in sensitive matters, like the Regency Act and succession plans. What's notable is that Camilla didn't just offer opinions, she issued directives and unsolicited advice, particularly to Prince William and Princess Kate. According to Timothy, these lessons sometimes crossed the line, making Kate feel pressured and fueling even more anger in Anne. What do you think about Camilla's interference? Do you feel her actions have gone too far? If yes, leave a 2 in the comments. If no, comment. 5. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to support the channel, giving me more motivation to bring you deeper insights in upcoming videos. However, what hurt Timothy and Princess Anne the most was how Camilla began managing King Charles's time. Under the pretext of protecting the king's health and peace of mind, Camilla increasingly limited his interactions with family, especially with Anne. On more than one occasion, Princess Anne returned home disappointed after last-minute cancellations of private meetings with her brother, moments she always cherished which Camilla skillfully blocked. For Anne, this wasn't just an inconvenience, it felt like a deliberate sidelining of family ties, eroding the trust between close relatives. Even the small family gatherings at Clarence House events that should have simply been moments to strengthen sibling bonds began to shrink. Strangely, Princess Anne was often left off the guest list. For someone who always puts family first, this was no small matter. What worried Sir Timothy Laurence the most wasn't just the outward distance, but something deeper, a form of hidden power quietly spreading like a cold mist over the royal family. Timothy noticed how Camilla used words like a sweet yet corrosive weapon. She would gently say to King Charles, "Anne is just busy with horses and charities. She doesn't understand the real pressures of leadership like we do." In front of others, she appeared humble, but behind their backs, she skillfully sowed seeds of doubt. To the courtiers, Camilla expressed concerns that Prince William was too modern words that seemed harmless, but acted like a silent dagger cutting into the image of the heir to the throne. Timothy clearly understood the meaning behind these words. They were not simply personal remarks. This was a plan, a series of deliberately leaked statements designed to undermine the credibility of those around, so that Camilla could gradually establish herself as the only reliable pillar beside the king. The media campaign and the loaded silence. Then the media began to uniformly change their tone. Suddenly, headlines flooded the press like Camilla, the woman who holds the throne steady, the steady leadership of Queen Camilla. Meanwhile, there was almost no mention of Princess Anne's decades of service or the increasingly prominent roles of William and Kate in carrying the future of the royal family. For Timothy, everything was crystal clear. This was no coincidence. It was a systematically orchestrated campaign, a sophisticated strategy to place Camilla at the center, not only in the king's heart, but also in the eyes of the public. The atmosphere at the 2025 Royal Ascot Horse Racing Festival was as lively as ever, carriages, wide-brimmed hats, the cheers of the crowd. But behind the dazzling lights lay a cold truth. King Charles sat quietly, his face pale, breath weak, exhaustion clearly etched on his features. And then, in a seemingly ordinary moment, Timothy stood near Camilla and accidentally overheard her whispering to her private advisor, "This throne must forever remain in my hands, no matter what happens to Charles." The words stunned Timothy into silence. A chill ran down his spine, colder than any storm he had ever faced at sea. For the first time, he no longer saw Camilla as just a difficult sister-in-law, but as a real threat to the throne and to the royal family itself. After that moment, Timothy began to take action. He searched for answers, and what he discovered shocked him. It was not just a careless remark. It was the culmination of a plan years in the making, a double-edged conspiracy to keep Charles alive, but not strong enough to stand in Camilla's way. Since King Charles began cancer treatment, his health has rapidly declined. The public believed it to be the natural consequence of the disease, but according to a shocking source Timothy accessed, Camilla had influenced the king's personal doctor to intentionally reduce the chemotherapy dosage. Not enough to cause Charles's death, but just enough to weaken him, gradually stripping him of his ability to govern the country, forcing him to rely entirely on his wife. The recorded words sent chills down people's spines. "Keep him alive for the cameras, but weak for me. If he slips up, I will destroy his career and his family." No longer the image of a devoted wife, this was a woman willing to go to any lengths to hold on to power. But it didn't stop there. Camilla was also rumored to have manipulated Charles while he was physically and mentally weak to force him to sign a secret power of attorney document. On the surface, these were just ordinary administrative papers. But in reality, this document transferred control of Princess Anne's charitable funds and inheritance, including those granted by Queen Elizabeth II and backed by the sovereign grant, directly into Camilla's hands. For Anne, it wasn't just about money. It was her career, her personal legacy, the medical, educational, and charitable projects she had painstakingly built over decades. And if Camilla succeeded, she would not only take the money, but also strip away the identity and role of a loyal, quiet, and dedicated royal princess. Princess Anne had firmly insisted that securing her financial safety was not only her right, but also the king's sacred duty. With a husband burdened by inner torment and fear, he had no choice but to yield. It was not just Sir Timothy's suspicions that exposed Camilla's dark secret, but the courage of a seemingly insignificant man, Edward Thompson, a low-level staff member at Clarence House. Edward had quietly witnessed countless whispers, threats, and shadowy schemes surrounding Camilla's private affairs for years. During that time, he chose silence out of fear of severe consequences. But when he heard Camilla threaten the king's personal doctor with words sharp as a blade, he knew he could no longer stay quiet. With trembling courage, Edward secretly recorded the conversation on his phone, hiding it in his coat pocket as his heart pounded with every beat. That small act of bravery transformed Edward from a silent observer into the keeper of the key to the survival of the entire monarchy. When Sir Timothy received the recording, he felt a cold punch to his heart, later confessing to close friends, "This is no longer rumor or suspicion, but undeniable proof that Camilla's ambition has crossed the line, possibly even into criminal behavior." For Sir Timothy, discovering this truth was a heavy burden, but also an unshakable mission. He understood that holding this truth meant possessing the power to either break or save the kingdom. The issue was no longer just about King Charles's health or Princess Anne's finances, but the very soul and honor of an entire realm that millions around the world still revered. Despite the weight of guilt and responsibility pressing on his shoulders, Sir Timothy knew this was only the beginning. If Camilla was bold enough to manipulate the doctors and coerce the king himself, no one knew what else she might be capable of. Unable to delay any longer, he resolved to reveal the whole truth to the king. For Sir Timothy, uncovering this truth was a heavy burden, but also an unavoidable mission. He understood that holding this secret meant possessing the power to either break or save the dynasty. The issue was no longer just King Charles's health or Princess Anne's finances. It was the very soul and honor of a monarchy revered by millions worldwide. Despite the weight of guilt and responsibility on his shoulders, Sir Timothy knew this was only the beginning. If Camilla was bold enough to manipulate doctors and coerce the king himself, no one could predict what else she might do. Without hesitation, he decided to reveal the whole truth to the king. When the truth reached King Charles, it wasn't a single blow, but a series of violent waves crashing over his frail body. His heart shattered not only from the betrayal, but also from his own blindness. For more than 3 decades, Charles had steadfastly defended and proven his love for Camilla before family, church, and the public. He had defied public opposition to keep her close, insisting that their love was genuine and unshakable. Memories flooded Charles's mind, images of his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who had always shown clear caution whenever Camilla's name was mentioned. From the wedding day, when the Queen avoided taking photos with the newlyweds, she had only ever accepted Camilla reluctantly. At the time, Charles thought it was just the conservative view of an old generation, but now that judgment felt like a forewarning. Perhaps the Queen had seen it all along, that Camilla was not truly his partner, but a schemer. Charles recalled the long days lying in his hospital bed, exhausted from chemotherapy. He remembered the times Camilla sat beside him holding his hand, whispering words of comfort. But how many of those were lies? How many of those gentle touches were just a performance to hide ambition? This realization dug deep into his heart, turning him from a man standing strong into an empty shell. Not only was his body weakening, but his soul was fracturing as he recognized that the partner he had trusted for so many years was actually the mastermind behind a dark conspiracy. Yet what troubled him most wasn't the personal pain, but the fear of the royal family's reaction, his children, his sister, and his advisors. They had sacrificed so much for him, always standing by his side. Now, because of his choice, they had to endure the shame of scandal. For a man who had spent his entire life preparing to become king, the crown felt heavier than ever before. And for the first time in his reign, Charles wondered if he still had the strength and authority to continue wearing that crown. The heir's reaction. Prince William. When the video recording of Camilla's threats was played in front of Prince William, his reaction was immediate and intense, usually a model of calm composure that calm shattered completely. His face turned pale, then flushed red with uncontrollable anger. For William, this was not just an ordinary scandal, but a slow assassination, a ruthless plot to poison his father through cruel schemes to seize power. That anger transformed into unshakable determination. Rising above the initial shock, William quickly stepped up to take control of the situation with the assuredness of a natural-born leader. He made it clear that this was no longer a private family matter, but had become a legal crisis that demanded swift and decisive action. While William reacted fiercely, Princess Anne, known for her strong will and unshakable calm, broke down. Her tears were not from weakness, but from the burning pain and deep sorrow of a sister witnessing her beloved brother being cruelly manipulated and harmed. Princess Anne painfully recalled their late mother's final admonitions about her financial independence. Queen Elizabeth II had always been meticulous in ensuring that the charitable funds and assets meant for her daughter were securely protected from any risk of exploitation. Now seeing Camilla attempting to seize those sacred legacies, Anne felt she could no longer bear it. Standing firmly beside Prince William, Anne became a voice that no lawyer or advisor could replace. With a tone full of righteous anger, she clearly outlined the historical weight and profound emotional significance of their mother's will, while exposing the illegality and murky financial schemes orchestrated by Camilla. In the meeting room, the royal council, comprising senior advisors, top lawyers, and a few trusted friends of Queen Elizabeth, listened quietly. 3 tense hours passed as they debated vigorously over the legal and political consequences of the evidence. Could the truth be made public? Would exposing Camilla shatter the already fragile image of the monarchy in the modern world? Yet no doubt remained. Even the most cautious advisors admitted that if Camilla's conspiracy continued, it would not only destroy King Charles but also threaten to overturn the entire crown. One by one, hesitant voices gradually fell silent. And when the session ended, everyone reached a consensus. Camilla would be stripped of all executive powers and financial control. All charitable funds and assets that she tried to seize would be returned to Princess Anne and placed under the joint supervision of Anne and William. From now on, Camilla's role would be nothing more than an empty shell. She would only be the queen consort in name, without any real power. The council also made one final, equally important decision. This scandal must never be allowed to leak to the public. The secret that the queen consort had conspired against the king had to be kept under wraps because if it got out, people would start doubting the king's health and capability. Everything had been arranged smoothly, except Camilla had no idea how her life was about to change. When the news that her secret had been exposed reached Camilla, people expected her to be scared, remorseful, or at least pretend to be. But no. The walls of Clarence's house shook with her furious screams. Camilla paced the room like a cornered beast, hands trembling, face twisted with rage. She had spent her entire life climbing to the pinnacle of the monarchy, standing at the center of power. The thought that it could all be swept away in a single moment was unbearable to her. In a panic, Camilla made a reckless decision, revealing the depth of her fear. She summoned a close aide and coldly ordered eliminate Sir Timothy Laurence. She blamed him entirely, accusing him of being overly curious, digging and exposing the secrets she had deliberately kept hidden. The assassination plot fails and tensions escalate. However, the assassination plot never succeeded. The plot was discovered and stopped before Sir Timothy's life was ever threatened. This event only reinforced the council's belief that Camilla was dangerous and mentally unstable. The news of the failure quickly reached her ears, causing Camilla's state of mind to spiral further into chaos. The palace, once the stage for her sophisticated manipulations, had now become a suffocating prison where every glance felt like a threat. She paced endlessly through the corridors, her mind tangled with impossible scenarios. She thought of ways to regain her position of power and silence her enemies. But every idea collapsed into the same conclusion: she had failed. But Camilla had no idea that the cruelest fate was yet to come. A simple letter sealed with the Royal Council's emblem was delivered to her. That seal signaled a serious message. With trembling hands, Camilla tore open the envelope and began to read. The merciless words, written in the cold language of law and order, clearly stated her executive powers were completely revoked. Her influence and authority would be stripped away. She would retain only the ceremonial title of Queen Consort, with no rights or power beyond a mere formality. Her eyes gradually dimmed, her face turning pale as she read each line. Those who witnessed it later recalled seeing her sit silently clutching the paper until it was torn and tattered. She had fought her entire life to be recognized as Charles's official partner, to reach the position she believed was her destined right. Now all of that had vanished. The letter slipped from her hands onto the floor. For a long while she just sat there, staring blankly into space. Then unusual tears began to fall. She wept not for Charles, nor for the family that had been shattered, but for herself and the dream that had died. But now everything had slipped away. The letter fell from her hands onto the floor. For a long time, she just sat there staring into space. Then unusual tears began to fall. She cried not for Charles or the family that had been torn apart, but for herself and the dream that had died. That night, standing before the mirror, the woman who looked back was no longer a powerful queen, but a 78-year-old woman with empty eyes and a wrinkled face. Camilla's resilience had completely collapsed. She shut the door to her room and refused to see anyone. The palace, once her throne, had become a prison. Her dream of power didn't just slip away, it turned to ashes. She wasn't exiled to a distant land, nor publicly humiliated. The harshest punishment she faced was to live the rest of her life in emptiness and under the disdain of her own family. Although her actions deserved imprisonment, this punishment was even more severe. Camilla had to live in solitude, consumed by anger and contempt. Her story ended in complete failure, her malicious ambitions shattered, leaving only an old woman staring into the mirror, wondering had she ever truly won anything. What do you think about the Royal Council's decision? Was that punishment fair for what Camilla did? If not, what would you consider a more just penalty? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more compelling stories. And remember to click on the next video on your screen. You're going to love it. This is purely for reference purposes, only based on hypotheses and unverified rumors, public speculation. Secrecy is the foundation of the world's oldest power. For decades, the monarchy guarded its silence until now. A black swan has arrived, a sealed genetic map that shatters history. This isn't a public announcement. It is the precise moment absolute certainty collapses. Princess Anne, the stoic temple guardian, finally cracked. Her rare tears weren't just emotion, they signaled a belief system colliding with an irreversible truth. Before we decode this historic shift, subscribe now. This wasn't a tabloid rumor. The leak bled from the very heart of the royal machine. A flawless system suddenly went dark. Calls were cut. Oak doors slammed. The air at Buckingham Palace wasn't filled with ceremony, but with the suffocating weight of a succession crisis. Everyone in that room knew the stakes. They weren't just facing a document, but the rewriting of history. Reputation can be salvaged, but when science questions the bloodline, there is no retreat. The moment the report touched Anne's hands, the order shattered. Witnesses called it a total collapse of discipline. Her trembling wasn't just nerves, it was the armor cracking. Why would a veteran of political storms unravel over a lab result? Because this wasn't just data, it was the key to a buried secret validating a dark warning whispered decades ago by Diana herself. Was this fate? Or the final move in a game we were never meant to understand? Diana's letters hid more than pain. They encoded an identity paradox, a flaw in the royal design itself. Anne once dismissed these warnings as paranoia. Now she realizes Diana wasn't venting, she was predicting the future. Whispers are easy to ignore. DNA is not. The physical evidence shattered Anne's composure. Normally, the system neutralizes threats before they surface, but this time the gears jammed. Total paralysis took over. They aren't staying silent out of caution. They are silent because the system has failed. When DNA rewrites history, the rule book burns. Inside the palace, the fear wasn't about managing the media, it was about the collapse of a centuries-old foundation. To understand this panic, we must uncover a secret 1990s pact. Diana the rebel and Anne the guardian, two opposites who should have clashed yet found a dangerous common ground in the shadows. It wasn't politics, it was shared survival. They both saw the hidden fractures in the crown. When the masks dropped, they faced the cold calculation of their reality together. In that silence, a warning was planted, one that became Anne's ghost. Diana wasn't just mourning a broken marriage. She was targeting the bloodline itself, exposing a flaw in a system the world thought was untouchable. That dormant warning has awoken as hard evidence. We are past the point of discovery. Now comes the fallout. If a genetic map can erase a legacy, which side do you choose, the cold facts or the ancient order type 2 for truth? Type 5 for stability. Don't just watch, decide. Like and subscribe now because the next mystery is even darker. Diana didn't name names. She left a system warning. This wasn't fear, it was a calculated fail-safe. She rigged the timeline to ensure the truth would eventually surface. From that moment, her bond with Anne became a strategic pact. Through coded notes, they mapped out loops for the next generation's secrets, far too explosive for the monarchy to handle at the time. If the unexpected strikes, you must guard the final data. Diana's whisper wasn't a confession, it was a transfer of command. Anne accepted it as a dark theory only for history to turn it into a crushing, silent burden. Decades passed, but when the cold science of the genetic map surfaced, the truth hit Anne hard. Diana's warnings weren't riddles, they were precise predictions. The ghost has hardened into molecular proof, ready to dismantle the crown's foundation. Even Anne couldn't predict an external variable breaking the royal seal. An unnamed entity ensured this code escaped the dark archives. And the scariest part, this sample didn't come from a doctor's office. It wasn't routine. It was taken. Sources confirm this was Diana's self-preservation algorithm. In her final isolated years, she wasn't seeking medical answers, she was planting proof of identity. Now history collides with science. Marble walls can no longer block genetic truth. Is this a random glitch in the legacy, or is it the inevitable shock the system needs to finally evolve? If you held the key to topple the world's oldest power, what would you choose: eternal silence to keep the peace, or the dangerous road of truth, tell us truth or order? Diana knew she couldn't trust the system. She built a shadow network, a private circle of experts untouchable by the institution. Among them, one specialist crossed the professional line to become a silent witness to history. He saw past the pageantry. He knew the royal machine didn't just preserve history, it rewrote it to ensure survival. Under his watch, a silent biological protocol was executed. This wasn't rebellion, it was information insurance. The sample was vaulted off the grid far beyond the palace's reach, Diana's final defense against a system she could no longer trust. When Paris shattered, the world chaos took over. But Diana's insurance policy didn't trigger instantly, it went underground. The specialist tracked down Anne with a brutal message: the science contradicts the lie. Torn between her vow and the crown's survival, Anne made her choice. She didn't act, she buried it. Anne didn't destroy the data. She buried it. Encrypted in the deepest archive layers, it had no digital footprint, a ghost waiting for its cue. After 20 years of silence, the hidden variable woke up. A source from Diana's inner circle triggered the alarm. They didn't need to leak the full file. They just proved the weapon existed, the protocol, the specialist, and the signatures. That was enough. The hypothesis is dead. We are witnessing an irreversible chain reaction. The data exposes unexplainable anomalies in the very heart of the succession. These aren't random biological glitches. They are cracks in the bloodline. The immutable right to rule is finally being questioned. Science has breached the fortress of tradition, and the crisis is absolute. If a single genetic code can topple a kingdom, do we cleanse the system with truth or bury it to save the symbols? Secrets have moved from marble tombs to digital encryption. But when that code breaks, the choice is ours. In a transparent world, do we need necessary lies to protect history, or is truth the only legacy worth fighting for? Drop your analysis below, and follow us as we continue to decode the world's most complex systems. The fallout was immediate and brutal. The upper echelons of power didn't just shake, they cracked. Questions of legitimacy are no longer theories, they are weapons rewriting the equation of authority. Every sacred inheritance law is now on trial. The system scrambled to contain the damage and spin the story, but they failed. The leak unleashed a new, unstoppable, sovereign scientific truth. DNA speaks a language no diplomat can silence. The real shock wasn't the data, it was the breakdown. Princess Anne, the axis of discipline, finally shattered. Witnessing the monarchy's strongest pillar tremble behind closed doors proved one thing. This wasn't a political crisis. It was the death of a belief system. The truth didn't break on the news. It broke in the dim silence of her study. This was profoundly personal. Anne wasn't facing a scandal, she was staring at the historical paradox she had spent decades burying. Witnesses described total paralysis. She froze. She refused to speak to Charles or the heirs. That silence was the sound of the family structure snapping. She refused the summary. She demanded the raw evidence. But when her eyes hit the genetic code, the weight was unbearable even for her. Her tears weren't shock, they were recognition. Deep down, she had always felt the aftershock of Diana's warning. What the world called paranoia was now cold, hard science. The prophecy didn't just come true, it arrived with enough force to derail the entire monarchy. When she finally broke her silence to a single confidant, it wasn't just emotion, it was a confession of systemic failure. Her words cut deep. I swore I would protect her, and I failed. This isn't just grief, it's an admission that protocols and loyalty were powerless to save the truth. Anne didn't crack under media pressure. She cracked under the moral weight of realizing that her own silence was the wall blocking justice all along. The delay wasn't caution, it was a fatal error. By keeping the data locked, she let the machine crush the truth. Anne's tears aren't just grief, they represent the weight of her own inaction. But beneath the regret lies a terrifying realization. Her words, "The crown will never recover," aren't emotional hyperbole. They are a cold, hard diagnosis. When DNA disproves the bloodline, the throne loses its anchor. A lie this deep creates a permanent security flaw, one that can never be patched. For decades, the royal machine suppressed these shadows with ritual and protocol. But the genetic variable has ripped the veil away. We are done with whispers. This is the brutal collision of history and hard science. Genetic data does more than expose secrets. It reconstructs the truth. For the powerful, this isn't a media crisis. It is the demolition of the old order. The inquiry into loyalty and science ends here. Marble walls can no longer block the genetic code. A new chapter of history is being written right now in a language that is more objective and colder than ever before. Here is the final question. In a world where science strips secrets bare, can we handle a truth that shatters our reality? Or do we need myths to survive? If you held this report, would you choose disclosure to change the world or suppression to keep the peace? The data is now in the light. A seismic genetic misalignment has been found in the chain of succession. The map of power is about to be redrawn. When power is built on unbroken blood, a single deviation brings the whole structure down. If the genes don't match, the titles are void. This isn't just a legal issue, it is a crisis of institutional authenticity. Inheritance laws, royal decrees, and public trust are all suddenly suspect, and the deeper analysis reveals the terrifying truth. This was not a random accident. Diana didn't act on impulse, she acted on intelligence. Her security was compromised, her calls intercepted. To survive, she built a truth bunker outside the system, a final defense against a history she knew would be rewritten. But her trust had limits. Even Anne, the chosen guardian, was only given half the key. The name of the root variable remains in shadow. Only the warning of its destructive potential for the House of Windsor has endured through time. As these genetic fragments began to erupt into public discourse, this was no longer merely a media scandal. It was a direct assault on the structure of succession itself. Within the corridors of power, chaos spread as strategic advisors confronted a problem with no easy solution. If a single link in the direct line of succession is called into question regarding legitimacy, the entire legal framework that has governed the system thus far enters a state of temporary invalidation. This does not affect only the individuals directly involved. It raises a profound question about the future of the entire institution. Will the system choose purification to preserve the integrity of historical data, or will it attempt to shroud the issue beneath a new layer of diplomatic fog? As foundations once thought immovable begin to tremble under the pressure of empirical truth, the monarchy faces an existential crisis. This is not merely the story of an individual, it is the fracture of a belief system that has endured for centuries. If a single link in the chain of succession is proven to have a genetic misalignment, the entire legal structure and inheritance rules enter a state of invalidation. Silence from the firm is no longer a prudent strategy. It is becoming a catalyst for speculation about systematic deception. As parliamentary corridors begin to whisper about constitutional repercussions, public trust fractures between empathy and sharp scrutiny. While Anne sinks into a collapse of systemic certainty, another figure has emerged from the shadows with a radically different approach. Queen Camilla, in an emergency meeting behind closed doors, did not choose denial or grief. Instead, she displayed a state of strategic resistance. From her perspective, the genetic data was not a truth to be honored, but an information weapon sent from the past. Her remark about the recklessness of the deceased revealed an uncompromising confrontation between two modes of thought. On one side, Anne, with her anguish over an abandoned truth. On the other, Camilla, determined to protect the existing structure at any cost. The tension between the two most powerful figures within the palace erupted into a genuine battle of methodology. One side represented disillusionment and guilt, the other embodied a calculated damage control strategy. Camilla demanded a tight-lipped response, deploying legal instruments and media pressure to smother the leak. The marble walls now enclosed not only ritual, but a battlefield of legal threats and narrative manipulation. The system was attempting to heal itself by isolating the information pathogen, but can a genetic fracture truly be patched over with administrative paperwork? We have witnessed the moment when science, emotion, and power collide head-on. The final secret encoded in blood has not merely altered a lineage, it is raising a generational question about the very survival of institutions founded on heredity. Behind declarations about preserving stability, a strategy of system repositioning is being quietly deployed. The objective is not simply to contain a scandal, but to carry out a permanent data purification aimed at links deemed incompatible with the officially sanctioned bloodline. A leak from the highest advisory levels revealed a pragmatism bordering on cruelty. It is time to stop sustaining hypotheses that are not real. This was not merely a personal remark, it was a signal of an effort to rewrite royal history. According to internal analyses, the public relations apparatus received a top-secret directive: recast the genetic data as a product of imagination or part of recycled conspiracy narratives in order to preserve the coherence of the royal storyline. Yet this structure encountered an immovable force: the steadfast resolve of Princess Anne. In a moment described as the breaking point of internal diplomacy, she delivered a sharp declaration. This is not a narrative to be managed. This is the truth. Anne's departure from the meeting, punctuated by the slam of a closing door, marked the end of compromise protocols. For the guardian of tradition, the line between protecting the crown and betraying the truth had officially been crossed. At that moment, the system ceased to be a unified whole and fractured into factions with completely opposing value systems. As internal conflicts reached their peak, the palace's self-defense mechanism completely failed under external pressure. Whispers in the shadows rapidly transformed into blazing headlines across global media. This was the scenario. The firm feared most the truth was no longer within their control. As genetic maps were dissected by data analysts and the press alike, a wall of protection built over centuries collapsed in a matter of hours. Headlines about the Windsor bloodline and the DNA variable sent shockwaves across every digital platform. Now the story is no longer guided by royal statements, but by the relentless scrutiny of a global public. The question of bloodline legitimacy is no longer an internal matter. It has become an open investigation for all humanity. Every expert, every biographer, and every observer is constructing their own interpretation from the fragments of leaked data. The palace's silence is no longer a display of authority, it is a sign of paralysis in the face of an undeniable reality. We are witnessing a rare historical moment when genetic secrets become powerful enough to pierce the most fortified layers of a monarchy. This conflict is not merely between individuals, but between the value of truth and the duty to preserve the institution. Now we invite you to exercise your own analytical judgment. Can the crown survive in an era of absolute transparency, or are we witnessing the unraveling of a long-standing myth? Leave your perspective below, and don't forget to subscribe to follow the next developments in this explosive investigation. When the walls of silence were breached, the outside world applied immense pressure. Questions about the coherence of the succession system and bloodline variables were no longer confined to closed rooms. Media outlets began running algorithmic deep dives into the past, turning historical ghosts into direct weapons against present-day credibility. Amid this data storm, Princess Anne unexpectedly became the focal point of a generational debate. One side views her as a guardian of truth, while the other sees her as a link that allowed a system error to persist for far too long. In an era where subtlety has been replaced by the speed of dissemination, Anne has become the focal point of a structure in fracture. The true detonation of this chain of events originated from an unreleased root data source, a leaked portion of Diana's private diary. These were not merely pages of writing, they constituted a truth matrix recorded during her final months. References to a bloodline secret provided the public with the final pieces needed to complete the timeline and understand the motivations behind the unfolding events. When these data points were finally linked together, the palace's conventional diplomatic protocols became useless. Internal pressure reached an alarming level as figures within the system began to panic in search of an exit. Under advisors' pressure to issue an information patch, a denial statement, Anne made a shocking choice to end the cover-up. Her assertion, "There will be no more data distortion," transformed the monarchy's long-standing silence into a devastating blow to its very structure. At this point, the illusion of a fully unified system completely shattered. Constitutional experts were summoned daily to address variables threatening the survival of the crown. Inside, there was chaos born of contradictory decisions. Outside, an uncompromising demand for transparency. Anne stood at the eye of the storm where every pressure and every old promise collided at full force. Yet this was still not the end. In a move that overturned every rule of royal governance, Princess Anne took a step that no strategist had anticipated. She appeared before the cameras not as a symbol of power shielded by ritual, but as an individual confronting the truth. It was a shift from royal protocol to responsibility to truth, a final act of facing a reality that no marble wall could conceal any longer. The moment Anne stepped into view will be remembered as a fracture point in traditional history. There were no blaring trumpets, no ceremonial escort of courtiers, only a solitary figure fully shedding the mantle of the steadfast temple guardian. In her hands was not a censored administrative document, but a relic of truth, a crumpled letter from Diana, one that had haunted the system like a ghost for more than 2 decades. As the cameras captured the image, Anne began to speak. Her voice was not that of an institution, but of a human being tormented by prolonged silence. She did not begin with justification. She began by confronting the variables head-on. With a painful steadiness, Anne confirmed what the system had long sought to conceal. The genetic report was an objective reality. She admitted that fragments of truth had been entrusted to her by Diana in her final days, but that at the time she chose to prioritize structural stability over data transparency. Her confession carried the weight of a belated awakening. I mistakenly believed that burying a variable would protect the integrity of the entire architecture. But truth has no expiration date. It merely waits for the moment to reclaim its right to exist. In that instant, millions of watching hearts felt the shattering of a royal illusion, giving way to a stark, unadorned reality. The climax of Anne's address came when she broke every convention of lineage to reach the core of humanity itself. Looking straight into the camera, she delivered a direct message to the central figure of the storm, offering a new definition, one that drew a clear and deliberate line between a genetic map and an emotional legacy. She affirmed blood may define a line of succession, but empathy and love are what define a family. This act was not merely a gesture of consolation, it was a restructuring of values at the very heart of a system historically built solely on bloodline. Its impact was immediate, sending shockwaves across the globe, not through outrage, but through an unprecedented depth of empathy. That moment resonated far beyond the boundaries of an ordinary speech, becoming a seismic shift in how legacy itself was understood. For the first time in the modern era, the public was no longer observing a symbolic entity. They were confronting an act of existential authenticity. Anne chose to break through traditional barriers in favor of a universal truth. The wave of response was not merely support, but a redefinition of admiration itself. From the most exacting critics to the general public, all recognized this as the most powerful moment of humanization in the long history of monarchy. Anne had shifted the narrative, entirely transforming a data crisis, a DNA scandal, into a revolution of sincerity. Before leaving the podium, Anne left behind a principle that will be quoted for centuries to come, a manifesto on the balance between power and truth. Truth may generate tremors that shake the crown, but it is the very adhesive that strengthens the foundation of a nation. The silence that followed was not emptiness, but the sound of a system standing at a strategic breaking point, a state in which old rules no longer apply, and every path forward demands an unavoidable reckoning. A family was changed forever, not by external pressure, but by internal courage. Yet as Anne stepped down, a new chapter opened with the most critical variable of all, King Charles III. Facing an institution in flux and mounting questions about the coherence of the bloodline, the monarch now confronts a decision that will define his reign. Will he choose to continue the conservative protocols of the firm, or will he follow the path of transparency his sister has opened? This is not merely a personal choice. It is a question of whether a 1,000-year-old legacy can survive in the information age. The greatest question now no longer lies in genetic numbers, but in the response of the apex of power. Will the monarch choose to deny objective reality or accept the historical reckoning that Diana set in motion decades ago? Behind stone walls, the silence surrounding King Charles has become a terrifying pause. The cancellation of public engagements and the postponement of ceremonies are not merely personal retreats. They signal a paralysis of the entire representative machinery. Behind closed doors, a governance tragedy is unfolding. Charles is being torn between two opposing forces, the pragmatic faction led by Queen Camilla and a circle of seasoned advisors urging an immediate campaign of legal damage control to erect a barrier between the crown and the consequences of the DNA variable. And the legacy faction echoes from the past and the sincerity of Anne's confession, where the ghost of Diana is no longer merely a memory, but has become a shaping coefficient for the future of the reign. Charles is not merely confronting a personal crisis. He stands at the threshold of what can be called the entropy of the institution, a state in which old rules no longer possess the strength to hold a fracturing structure together. A shift in power has begun to surface through secret meetings with Prince William. Held late at night and entirely removed from advisory staff, these discussions carry the character of future reconstruction. According to system-level analyses, these are no longer ordinary father-son conversations. These were dramatic, contradictory, and at times explosive debates over how to maintain the crown when its very foundation has shifted. They are attempting to design a new protocol for an era in which truth can no longer be permanently sealed away. King Charles now stands before an entirely new map of reality. Every step he takes from here will determine whether the monarchy adapts in order to survive or collapses under the weight of secrets brought into the open. In your view, in the confrontation between institutional stability and the transparency of truth, which side will ultimately prevail? This content is purely for reference based on unverified hypotheses and public speculation. We approach it from an objective, analytical perspective. Join me in decoding this mysterious picture together. Press 1 if you want to continue digging into unexplored and undisclosed angles. Press 0 if you believe in the absolute self-protective mechanisms of the royal institution. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking developments in the series Truth Behind the Veil. Thank you for accompanying us. See you at the next variable. Within the structure of a long-standing institution, for an individual to embody the core values of the nation is not only an honor, but also a form of systemic pressure. Princess Anne and King Charles, two pillars of traditional order, have long been regarded as the perfect custodians of the strictest rules. Yet behind the quietude of ceremonial rituals, there appear to be undercurrents of emotion and history that time cannot erase. Could there be an invisible boundary gradually fading? Are the secrets kept for decades truly shadows? Or are they the missing pieces needed to decode the true essence of the resilience we continue to witness? We will not chase rumors. Instead, we will analyze the interactions between individuals within a system governed by age-old conventions. One of the most noteworthy aspects is the relationship between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla. On television, the world sees a harmonious blend of etiquette. However, from a systems psychology perspective, this harmony seems to lack a genuine emotional connection. A static distance exists between them. This isn't a direct conflict, but rather the presence of historical boundaries that have never been bridged. This estrangement is not a random occurrence. It seems to be the inevitable result of a series of events that unfolded decades ago when concepts of duty and affection began to intersect, creating complex variables. To understand reality, we must go back to a time when the old order still reigned supreme. Before becoming part of the power structure, Camilla was associated with Andrew Parker Bowles, a figure with a particularly deep connection to Princess Anne. Here we see a hypothesis of personal sacrifice in the face of systemic barriers. Princess Anne and Andrew once shared a genuine connection. But at the time, differences in faith and the strict rules of the church created an insurmountable wall between them. It's not just a story of two individuals, it's a clash between the yearning for freedom and institutional order. Princess Anne's choice of Andrew as godfather for her daughter Zara demonstrates a timeless appreciation. a bond enduring despite social labels. The complexity intensifies as timelines intertwine, forcing each person to follow a different path. King Charles, then a young prince, entered Camilla's life. An attraction based on calmness and understanding blossomed, but once again the system spoke up. Standards of suitability, family expectations, and military service created a fateful silence. When Charles returned, the old picture had been replaced by a new reality, the marriage of Camilla and Andrew. A cycle of regret and repressed emotions was formed. Could it be that these very knots have created a psychological legacy that influences how members of the royal family interact with each other to this day? Every system operates on a balance between individual ego and collective expectations. When personal emotions are forced to give way to symbolic values, what happens to the truths behind them? What do you think of this hypothesis? Were the strict rules of the past tools for protecting stability, or are they the very source of the silent rifts we are seeing? Time may fade memories, but within the structure of a symbolic family, it often deepens underlying bonds. Princess Anne, after establishing her own path with rigorous royal duties, maintained an invisible but enduring connection with Andrew Parker Bowles. Here we face an intriguing variable. When Camilla entered her formal marriage to King Charles, a complex web of relationships was formed. The woman at the center of the current system had once been intimately connected to both Anne's confidant and her brother. From a systems analysis perspective, this is not simply a love story, but an overlapping of social roles, creating significant psychological pressure on the stability of internal relationships. Princess Anne has always been considered the embodiment of the traditional model, where devotion, order, and adherence to rules are never allowed to be shaken. For a mindset that values consistency so highly, the appearance of Camilla is not just an addition to the family, but a sign of disruptive change. Could it be that in the mind of a heritage guardian, Camilla's presence also evokes the most turbulent periods of the royal family? This contrast isn't an open war, but rather a difference between two sets of values. One representing absolute steadfastness to the past, and the other symbolizing adaptation and restructuring after setbacks. For decades, this quietude has been maintained as a shield protecting the public image. However, as roles within the palace begin to be redefined, the cracks in this relationship are gradually becoming apparent. Respect in the royal world is never a free gift. It's a currency that must be accumulated over time and through trials. Their interactions, described as minimal politeness, are in fact a systemic defense mechanism. There are no direct confrontations, no harsh words, only carefully calculated distances. For Anne, acceptance seems like a rigorous verification process. Can an individual truly integrate into the system if they have been a disruptive force in the past? Camilla, in her position, understood that entering an established structure was a journey fraught with prejudice. Princess Anne's strength and assertiveness mirrored the expectations the system placed upon her. In her silent struggle for acceptance, the story wasn't just about who was right and who was wrong, but about how to reconcile old wounds into a shared future. We have journeyed through layers of time, from the harsh rules of faith to the intricate web of personal relationships. Behind the diplomatic smiles and formal ceremonies lies a complex tapestry of sacrifice, responsibility, and emotions never officially named. In a system that values stability, like the monarchy, do forgiveness and acceptance truly exist, or is it all just a perfect arrangement to maintain the survival of a symbol? And if you were in their position, would you choose to uphold old principles or open yourself to a new beginning fraught with uncertainty? In any hierarchy, recognition comes not from words, but from action. Camilla, in her quest for a legitimate place, embarked on what we might call a demonstration of duty. Instead of merely appearing as a symbol alongside King Charles, she became deeply involved in charitable structures and community missions. Under the watchful eye of Princess Anne, who considered devotion the sole measure, a subtle shift occurred. As instinctive resistance subsided, it was replaced by professional recognition. However, we need to analyze carefully. Does this recognition equate to warmth? The answer seems to lie in the gap between two different worldviews. Here we see an implicit dialogue between two schools of thought. Princess Anne, the silence of the rock. She represents the classic royal mindset where duty is performed quietly, without the need for praise and completely detached from the media spotlight. Camilla, modern adaptation. Entering the system from the outside, she understands that the existence of the monarchy in the 21st century requires a bridge connecting with the public through understanding and positive communication. This difference didn't create enemies, but it created two parallel paths that would never intersect. For Anne, the crown was an eternal burden. For Camilla, it was a journey of constant learning. The moment King Charles officially ascended the throne was also the moment the established standards were put to the test. In private meetings behind the palace curtains, Princess Anne played the role of guardian of the standards. Without harsh words, Anne posed a fundamental question: can the devotion of a spouse be measured by time or by genuine transformation? This was not a personal attack, but a test of loyalty to the institution. For someone who had dedicated her life to unconditional service like Anne, the level of devotion was a very high threshold that not everyone could easily cross. As the system sought to stabilize after the upheavals, a new light emerged, altering the entire distribution of energy within the palace. Catherine, Princess of Wales. If Camilla represented the effort to adapt, Catherine embodied a natural harmony. The Princess of Wales not only received public support, but also evoked memories of an ideal role model from the past. From an analysis of her influence, we see a psychological eclipse phenomenon, no matter how hard Camilla tries. Catherine's radiant and amiable presence seems to be casting an invisible shadow. Catherine's rise is not just a story of fame. It is the emergence of a new balancing point in the royal family. Someone who can connect Anne's rigorous values with the approachability of the new generation. We are witnessing a power struggle between positions and influence. While Princess Anne remains a firm moral compass, Camilla faces a new challenge, not only gaining acceptance within the family, but also finding her own voice amidst the powerful allure of the next generation. What is your hypothesis? Is Princess Anne's strictness necessary to uphold the core values of the royal family? Or is the presence of new figures like Catherine the key to this institution's continued existence in the public eye based on analyses of the character and depth of these royal figures? Let's leave comment number 2. If you are impressed with how they are asserting their position and preserving their heritage, leave a comment. Number 5. If you notice other mysteries still waiting to be solved in the future, don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel book now to avoid missing out on the most insightful analyses of the world of power symbols. In a system built on titles, the emergence of a middle-class figure like Catherine, Princess of Wales, created an interesting breakpoint. One theory suggests that Catherine's sophistication stemmed not from her lineage, but from a combination of modern education and self-effort. This creates a paradox. While the world admired Catherine's approachability within the confines of the ancient walls, she was a challenge to established norms. Could the underlying distance between Camilla and Catherine not be merely personal prejudice, but rather a resistance from an old order to a model of popular monarchy? Catherine represents a future where public support is the true measure of power, something Camilla, no matter how hard she tries, always faces obstacles from the past. Here we see two contrasting journeys. Camilla's journey, a journey of redemption and perseverance over decades to gradually gain acceptance. Catherine's journey, an almost immediate explosion of faith and love. This contrast created systemic pressure on the role of the queen consort. While Camilla relied on experience and perseverance to assert her position, Catherine used soft power, kindness, and modern style to become the soul of the new era. It was a silent competition where every step, every smile was a message about who would truly redefine the image of the royal family in the public eye. Amidst the undercurrents of fame and influence, Princess Anne remained a guiding landmark. As tensions among the female members of the family showed signs of escalating, Anne took what analysts called asserting priorities. Instead of engaging in debates about media image, Anne focused on strengthening the crown's power structure. She chose to act quietly but decisively, prioritizing core tasks that she believed were essential to the institution's survival. Her actions were not merely fulfilling her duty, but a message to both Camilla and Catherine that glamour may come and go, but responsibility to the crown is constant. Our investigation into the hidden corners of the palace has revealed a multifaceted picture: Anne's meticulousness, Camilla's persistent efforts, and Catherine's modern appeal. Three women, three representatives of different periods of history, are together creating a turbulent new chapter for the British monarchy. If you were at the helm, would you prioritize the steadfastness of tradition, like Princess Anne, or the modern adaptability of Catherine? Can Camilla truly overcome the shadow of the past when the standards of the ideal queen are gradually changing with the next generation? And finally, how will Princess Anne's next actions affect the power structure between Camilla and Catherine? Is her silence an acceptance or a warning of impending upheaval? While discussions about the royal family's future continue in London, Princess Anne chooses to appear in a highly symbolic setting: Guernsey Island. This was not merely a diplomatic visit, but a journey into the core of history, where 80 years ago the concepts of freedom and resilience were redefined after the dark years of World War II. From a systemic perspective, Princess Anne's presence at the 80th anniversary of Liberation Day was a strategic move to strengthen the living thread. She represented not only the crown, but also the continuation of a legacy left by Queen Elizabeth II, the royal presence in vital moments for the nation. A remarkable aspect of Princess Anne's approach is her breaking down of ceremonial barriers to connect with personal stories. When she takes the time to listen to the elderly, the last remaining witnesses of the occupation, a historical energy exchange takes place. She doesn't seek glamorous photos for the media. Her attentiveness is a message of recognition. For those who have lived through fear and loss, Anne's presence is like an affirmation that their sacrifices are an integral part of the national fabric. This is how the royal family maintains its legitimacy, not through social media posts, but by being the keepers of the flame for the most important memories. At the solemn church ceremony, Princess Anne's speech carried special weight. Her affirmations of not being forgotten were not merely words of comfort, but a commitment from the institution. In particular, her conveying warm congratulations from King Charles created a resonance effect. We see a well-coordinated mechanism. The king entrusts his faith, and Princess Anne, as the most dedicated executor, translates that faith into practical action. Recalling the hospitality received by King Charles and Queen Camilla a year earlier is also a clever way to unite the royal family members, despite the differences in personal styles we've analyzed earlier. The subsequent journey to Sark Island, a small but historically rich community, further clarifies Anne's philosophy. No community is too small to be forgotten. Her unwavering commitment to this memorial tour, despite the pressures and demanding schedule, demonstrates an ironclad sense of responsibility. It is her way of protecting the crown, by being present where it is most needed at the most meaningful time. Princess Anne's trip to the Channel Islands painted a stark contrast to the media frenzy at the palace. While the world was busy comparing Catherine's modernity with Camilla's efforts to adapt, Anne quietly built bridges between the past and the present. A hypothesis for us to ponder. Could it be that these quiet, historically significant journeys are what truly keep the monarchy standing against the storms of the digital age? In a world changing so rapidly, is Princess Anne's steadfastness to the past an outdated value or an indispensable spiritual anchor for the people? How do you assess the way Princess Anne represented King Charles in these historical events? When a royal visit sheds its rigid ceremonial layers, it becomes a reunion of witnessing souls. In Guernsey and Sark, we see not just a princess on duty, but a memory archive in operation. Personal stories, inherently small compared to the grand narrative of history, are the very atoms that make up the power of the crown in this new era. Perhaps the true value of royalty lies in its ability to transform the dry data of war into vibrant emotions. Let's analyze how the last surviving witnesses passed on their historical genetic code to future generations through Princess Anne. Let's consider the case of Winnie Coe. At age 85, the memory of her first chocolate bar was not simply a taste experience. From a systems analysis perspective, it marked the collapse of an isolated order and the rebirth of hope. In an environment where hunger was used as a tool of control, tasting the sweetness of relief packages was an emotional revolution. The contrast between the fear of receiving candy from an enemy soldier and the pure joy of accepting help from an ally creates a complex psychological structure. Princess Anne, by listening to these details, inadvertently acts as an authenticator of the human values that triumphed in the darkest hour. Another aspect of the heritage preservation system is the ability to reconstruct pain. Sally Roberts' story and the poem extracted from wartime letters are a prime example. Instead of being left to rot in a drawer, these old manuscripts were transformed into a public message before the royal court. This was a mechanism of collective spiritual purification. When the poem was read aloud before Princess Anne, it ceased to be the property of a single family and became part of the national heritage. Royal recognition elevated personal emotions to an enduring spiritual value, reminding us that forgetfulness is a second occupation. Finally, let's analyze Jeff Nicholson's reaction to the princess's unannounced visit. In a world where every royal move is meticulously planned down to the second the 30-minute preparation period seems like a test of authenticity. This surprise removed the barriers of elaborate preparation, leaving behind a purely human encounter. This can be seen as a highly effective visible presence strategy. It shows that royalty doesn't just exist in staged events, but that they are always ready to be present in the reality of the people. Princess Anne's journey through the islands was more than just a celebration of the 80th anniversary of liberation. It was a profound inquiry into the power of memory and the role of gratitude in shaping the future. From the sweetness of chocolate to verses from memory, it all created a symphony of resilience. In the digital age where everything moves so fast, are we losing the ability to listen to the small stories that hold such great value as Princess Anne did? Within an institution where stability is measured in centuries, even the slightest shift in the frequency of appearances and public response signals a profound structural realignment. As Princess Anne continues to reinforce the foundations through sheer endurance, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, begins to occupy the emotional space of the public, a systemic question emerges. Where will Queen Camilla's position lie within this new map of influence? From a strategic analytical perspective, we are witnessing an invisible yet extraordinarily powerful convergence between Anne's steel discipline and Catherine's soft power. This convergence is exerting an invisible pressure on the role of the Queen Consort, compelling the system to recalibrate itself in order to meet the public's increasingly high expectations. A compelling illustration of this soft power was the quiet yet highly symbolic visit by Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, to Guildhall. This was not merely a conventional Holocaust memorial event. It was a lesson in how a modern symbol can connect with humanity's deepest wounds. Catherine's appearance, unconfirmed, until the very last moment generated a distinct psychology of surprise effect. In the world of media, withholding information is not a flaw, but a deliberate strategy to focus attention on the message rather than the ritual. When Catherine entered the room, the atmosphere stirred not merely because of celebrity, but because of the presence of a guardian of memory. What elevated this visit far beyond a royal obligation was the thread of continuity dating back to 2020. Catherine did not simply meet historical witnesses. She applied her own artistic lens to preserve their faces and souls through the commemorative photographs marking the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Here let us examine a hypothesis. When a member of the royal family personally undertakes the preservation of heritage through art, they are no longer an external observer. Catherine has woven herself into the historical continuum of the witnesses. The reunion at Guildhall was not a diplomatic ritual, but a deeply human encounter. Her body language, eye contact, and gentleness testified to a form of systemic empathy, something no title alone can organically confer. In the solemn chamber of Guildhall, amid candlelight and tear-filled speeches, Catherine stood as a bridge between a painful past and a hopeful future. The photographs she had taken years earlier were displayed once more, but this time they carried a different weight. They were evidence of long-term commitment. This contrast poses a genuine challenge for Queen Camilla. While Camilla relies on experience and formal presence, Catherine is building an empire of trust, grounded in empathy and deep personal connections. Could this mark a turning point, one in which Anne's quiet influence and Catherine's increasingly radiant stature redefine who truly embodies the soul of the monarchy? In a world saturated with noise, silence can sometimes be the most powerful language of all. At the memorial ceremony, Catherine did not choose to place herself at the center of speeches. Instead, she chose empathetic presence. By standing quietly observing and listening to the historical witnesses, Catherine demonstrated a fundamental truth of soft power respect is not built through words, but through the capacity for genuine empathy. Her gaze never left the survivors, those who had emerged from the ashes of history. It was not the curiosity of a detached observer, but the conviction of a guardian of legacy. Beside her, Prince William reinforced an image of continuity and support. They were not standing there merely as members of the royal family. They stood as bridges between a painful past and the future's responsibility to remember. The photographs Catherine took are not simply visual art. They are mechanisms of historical validation reminding us that humanity endures even in the darkest of moments. However, behind those quiet and deeply human moments, another reality is silently taking shape within the structure of the monarchy. Let us pose a future-oriented hypothesis. What happens if the central pillar, King Charles, is no longer there to maintain equilibrium? From a systems analysis perspective, Queen Camilla occupies a position that is heavily dependent on the king's support. Should that variable change, a reconfiguration of power would inevitably follow. In such a scenario, Camilla could face a form of institutional isolation. On one side would stand the public's near-universal admiration for Catherine, a symbol of modern empathy. On the other side stands the quiet authority and unshakable credibility of Princess Anne, the guardian of the monarchy's most exacting traditional values. In such a scenario, Queen Camilla's position would be caught between two powerful vices of influence. Would her years of perseverance be enough to hold her ground without the protection of the crown itself? Or would she gradually be pushed away from the epicenter of power, making room for a new era, one in which empathy and tradition are redefined by the Anne-Catherine axis? From Princess Anne's quiet, steady steps to Catherine's presence, charged with soft power, every piece seems to converge toward a future matrix of unpredictable shifts within the monarchy. We are not merely witnessing changes in faces, we are observing a large-scale self-recalibration within a millennia-old institution. How do you assess this shift of focus among the generations of women who hold the monarchy's very soul? Is this a preparation for a new era, or a final effort to uphold values increasingly challenged by time? This content is entirely for reference based on hypotheses and unverified public speculation. Let's discuss it from an objective, analytical perspective. Don't stay silent, engage with me. Press 1 for curiosity and 0 for skepticism. Hit like and subscribe to continue the journey of uncovering the secrets behind the spotlight. See you next time. There are stories that are not just rumors or news, but secrets hidden behind a glamorous facade. A man, through vague documents and falsehoods, attempted to infiltrate my family's world, using fear to make people believe completely untrue things. Sensational accusations against the royal family were made, causing my loved ones, especially my mother, to face constant paranoia. We cannot deny that for decades, Princess Diana's life and legacy have captivated the world. Her grace, compassion, and especially the extraordinary connection she had with the public made her an irreplaceable icon. However, behind that glamorous image, she was a loving and self-sacrificing mother who always prioritized her family above all else. After years of being kept secret, a forgotten letter from Princess Diana to Prince William has unexpectedly resurfaced. What makes this letter so important? And could its words completely change how we understand the mother-son relationship within the royal family? The story begins with a quiet auction in London in July 2004. No sensational headlines, no dramatic events, simply a list of handwritten letters from Princess Diana put up for auction. These letters are not carefully edited official documents, but rather authentic and profound moments from her life. The letter that particularly drew attention was one about Prince William. In this letter, she is not just a mother, but a woman with profound thoughts and intense emotions. Written by Violet Collison, a close friend of the Spencer family, these letters open up a world that very few people have ever seen. These letters reveal a Diana unlike any royal figure. She wasn't a perfect woman, but a mother, a wife, and an ordinary human being with anxieties, joys, sorrows, and pressures she couldn't share with anyone. In particular, a letter written in July 1981 before her wedding to Prince Charles shows a young bride amidst the final preparations of her wedding, yet maintaining a rare composure in the midst of the chaos. The words in this letter are a clear testament to the inner strength she had to maintain through all the trials. Could these letters reveal things we never knew about Princess Diana? And why are there secrets that the world has waited until now to be revealed? The story doesn't end here, and the question remains, are these secrets really that important, or are they just small pieces in a more complex picture of royalty? There are letters that are more than just words. They are the imprints of a mother, the thoughts hidden within the lines. Princess Diana was always a symbol of compassion and closeness to the public, but her handwritten letters reveal a much deeper side. Over time, the tone in those letters changed, from the excitement of a young princess to anxiety, disappointment, and boundless devotion to her children. These letters are not simply personal notes. They are heartfelt expressions of unconditional love messages about the happiness and future of Prince William and Harry. However, what makes them extraordinary is not just what Diana wrote, but the subtle emotions behind each word. These are quiet, private moments far removed from the spotlight of the media, yet they reveal the deepest truth about the mother Diana was. One of the most notable letters written on June 21, 1989 to Sergeant George Plum is a testament to Diana's gratitude for those around her. But what's even more remarkable is that alongside her signature, there are tiny handwritten notes from William and Harry, a warm, simple family moment rarely seen in public. This not only shows Diana's love for her children, but also her desire for them to grow up in a warm and loving environment, a stark contrast to the cold and strict mold of the royal family. Undoubtedly, these letters will always be irreplaceable documents in exploring the complex relationships and genuine love between Diana and the royal family. Was her choice of how to raise her children a way of coping with the strict constraints of the royal family, or a constant struggle to retain what she considered her humanity in a world fraught with pressure and expectations? Do you believe Diana created a new model of royal parenting, or were her choices simply a reaction to the strict norms imposed by the royal family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In a world where royalty constantly faced the spotlight and relentless media scrutiny, Princess Diana created a special space where her sons Prince William and Harry could grow up with a simple and authentic childhood. Diana, that mother, was not only a symbol of compassion, but also a strong woman willing to sacrifice her own safety so that her children could understand life outside the palace walls. According to former royal bodyguard Ken Worf, Diana did everything she could to take her children to amusement parks, let them experience simple meals at fast food restaurants, and even ride public buses together, not for PR purposes, but simply because she wanted them to understand and experience life outside the glory of royalty. However, there is a bigger question. Did Diana truly succeed in ensuring that William and Harry were not completely isolated from the real world? Or were they just a small part of a larger picture of protection and control she imposed on their lives? She created a wonderful protective environment, but also didn't forget to show her children the real world outside of royal ceremonies. Diana not only wanted her children to have a normal childhood, but also always tried to protect them from media scrutiny, which she knew very well could cause serious harm. By requiring palace officials to organize public photo shoots for important moments in her children's lives, such as their first day of school or family holidays, she created a delicate balance between respecting family privacy and the inevitable curiosity of the public. Diana's letters to William were not simply routine updates. They were profound records of a mother's love and a testament to her dedication to preparing her children for the world outside the palace, while also protecting them from the harsh realities that society could bring. By the time these letters appeared at auction in 2004, William was no longer a young boy. He has grown into a young man attending university, and perhaps the lessons Diana imparted to him from a young age continue to influence his life. It's a constant connection between mother and son, evident in every letter, every thought she shared. Princess Diana's letters are not just dry words. They are a testament to a mother's intense love and wisdom, demonstrating the profound influence she left on Prince William's life, even as the world mourns her sudden passing. She created a world where William and Harry could grow up with a simple and authentic childhood, something very few in the royal family have had the opportunity to experience. How do you feel about Diana's sacrifices and love for her children? Did she truly succeed in keeping William and Harry from becoming isolated from the real world? Leave a comment with a 2 if you agree, or a 5 if you disagree. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our latest videos. Thank you so much and see you in the next video. 7 years after her tragic death, the monarchy had not yet fully adapted to the changes Diana had initiated, but William's increasing public appearances made many feel as though he were Diana's emotional heir. These letters were not only historical artifacts, but also reminders of what was lost. A mother who never saw her children grow up, never saw them build families, and fight for the ideals she would have been proud of. Diana never lived to see William and Harry become the men she had envisioned, but through her handwritten notes, her voice lives on. Not in polished speeches or formal appearances, but in sincere, warm, and loving words. This transformed the auction of her letters into a profoundly meaningful event, allowing the world to feel Diana's presence again, even though she is no longer here. These letters are not simply documents, but a testament to the profound love she had for William and a legacy she left to her son. A legacy not just in words or images, but in the way she lived each day. For Diana, the legacy of motherhood was not just about bold choices or quiet acts of defiance against royal tradition. At the heart of it all is a simple yet profound truth. Before William and Harry became global figures, they were just 2 boys with an extraordinary mother. Diana understood that royal privilege always came with immense pressure. From the beginning, she was determined to give her children more than just titles or ranks. She wanted them to have a real childhood free from the constraints of royal norms. Diana's parenting style began on June 21, 1982, when she became a mother for the first time, giving birth to Prince William. At just 20 years old, Diana's transition from a young girl to a mother was a major turning point in her life. This wasn't just a role she accepted, but a mission she embraced wholeheartedly. Unlike previous royal mothers who adhered strictly to tradition, Diana chose a different path. She didn't want to be aloof from her children's lives. She wanted them to grow up in a close environment where they felt loved and cared for, where the world outside the palace wasn't something alien, but an integral part of their lives. Princess Diana was not only an icon of grace and compassion, but also a devoted mother who longed to be present in every moment of her son's life. She broke seemingly unbreakable royal rules, starting with breastfeeding Prince William, a rare act in royal history. Diana also did not let the palace decide her son's name, choosing it herself, demonstrating her strength and independence as a mother. One of Diana's most significant decisions was her refusal to have staff care for her children. Instead of following tradition when William was born, even though Prince Charles was away on official business in Australia, Diana decided not to leave her son's side. She took William with her, sending a clear message no royal duty was more important than being with her children. This was a bold decision demonstrating her devotion and responsibility to her children. As William grew older, Diana continued to defy royal expectations. Instead of hiring private tutors like previous generations of royalty, she enrolled William in a local nursery near Kensington Palace. The image of a princess personally dropping off and picking up her son was not only an act of independence, but also a quiet revolution in royal parenting. It was a testament to Diana's desire to give her children a close, simple childhood completely different from what people imagined about the life of a member of the royal family. But Diana didn't stop at those simple actions. She wanted to give her children a life free from the confines of the royal bubble. William and Harry's childhood was filled with ordinary moments that any child would wish for. Diana took them to places like McDonald's or amusement parks, not because she loved fast food, but because she wanted them to experience the things that normal children do. She also took them on the London Underground, letting them meet people who didn't bow or speak formally. These trips were not simply pleasure excursions, but meticulously planned life lessons. Diana wanted her sons to understand the world outside the palace, to see life from all perspectives. This is confirmed by Ken Wharf, Diana's former bodyguard, who revealed that she chose the quietest times and minimized the presence of security on these trips. Diana even cleverly disguised herself to move unnoticed among crowds, clearly demonstrating her desire to protect her son's privacy. More than just providing her children with a close-knit childhood, Diana taught William and Harry the values of compassion. She constantly nurtured in them an open heart, ready to share and empathize with those in need. One of the most memorable moments was when she took William to visit Centrepoint, a charity that helps homeless young people in London. This was not just a visit, but a crucial lesson in love and social responsibility. Princess Diana was not only a mother but also the founder of a completely new way of raising children within the royal family, not only changing old rules but also defying traditional expectations. When she took William to visit homeless and underprivileged children, it wasn't just a lesson about the hardships of others' lives, but a way to teach him about the responsibilities that came with his privilege. These moments not only highlight Diana's compassion, but also affirm her determination to create a better future for her children. She not only taught them love, but also helped them understand the importance of facing the real world, a world beyond the palace walls. Diana not only changed the way children were raised in the royal family, but redefined the very concept. The relationship between her and her sons was not just that of a mother and her children, but a deep, unbreakable bond. Throughout the early 1990s, as her marriage to Prince Charles crumbled, and the world witnessed the collapse of their relationship, Diana found her only anchor in the place where she placed her unwavering faith, her two sons. Amidst the chaos of royal life, the relentless media speculation, personal pain, and political intrigues within the palace, Diana devoted all her energy to raising and protecting her sons from the turmoil around them. Diana understood that under public scrutiny, raising children was not just a responsibility but a constant struggle. She chose schools that not only offered quality education, but also protected her children's privacy and mental well-being. Diana didn't simply hand her children over to the school and hope everything would be all right. She was directly involved in William and Harry's school life, participating in school events and attending every sports day. The thank you letters she wrote to school staff, these small but heartfelt gestures, further highlighted her dedication to motherhood, a role more important than anything else. When Diana and Charles officially separated in 1992, things became more difficult than ever. But Diana didn't let this change affect her parenting. Despite the constant scrutiny surrounding her royal life, Diana remained deeply involved in her children's daily lives. By 1995, when she gave her famous interview to journalist Martin Bashir, the world had witnessed the undeniable cracks in royal life. But Diana's priorities remained clear. She always put her sons first. In that interview, Diana candidly shared her desire to raise her children with kindness, love, and resilience, emphasizing the importance of emotional intelligence over adherence to royal protocol. It was a powerful moment when a princess placed humanity above all rules and traditions. Shortly afterward, Queen Elizabeth II urged Diana to finalize her divorce, marking a significant turning point in the royal family. Diana, despite facing numerous challenges in her royal life, found strength in her sons. Although she felt isolated, her voice unheard, and constantly pushed aside, William and Harry were always a solid support system, helping her weather the storms of life. When her marriage to Prince Charles ended, she faced personal pain and media pressure, but nothing could shake her devotion and love for her children. After her divorce was finalized in 1996, Diana not only lost her title as princess, but also faced a profound change in her personal life. She no longer held a royal title, and by protocol would one day have to bow to her own sons. This devastated Diana not for political or power reasons, but for something deeply personal. She was no longer recognized in the way she had been accustomed to her entire life. However, when she shared this worry with William, his response brought her more comfort than ever. William, only 14 at the time, said, "Don't worry, mother. One day when I become king, I will repay you." Although William never publicly acknowledged this story, these words reveal the deep love and respect between mother and son. After leaving the monarchy, Diana found strength not only in her personal ideals, but also in the charitable work she undertook. From homelessness to raising awareness about HIV and the fight against landmines, Diana dedicated herself tirelessly to the issues she believed in. No longer representing the monarchy, she began to represent her own values, where love, compassion, and justice played a central role. Diana also continuously sent heartfelt letters to friends, staff, and supporters. These letters not only reflected her thoughts on social issues, but also served as notes about her sons. She wrote about William's kindness, Harry's dynamism, and her hopes for their future. While Diana knew she couldn't control her sons' futures, she ensured that through love and devotion, she instilled in them qualities no royal system could fully provide: empathy, courage, and the strength to become true men. Diana's parenting style wasn't a royal duty or a part of tradition. For her, it was about being fully present, listening and loving genuinely, consistently, and wholeheartedly. Diana was more than just a mother. She was a mother who always made time for her children no matter how difficult life got. Every night, she rocked William and Harry to sleep. Every day, she wrote them letters, and most importantly, she always told the truth, even when it was challenging. This is how she nurtured not only their bodies, but also their souls, helping them grow in an environment full of love and understanding. In 1992, the official separation of Diana and Prince Charles was not only a milestone in royal life, but also a crucial turning point in Diana's life. Although no longer living with Charles, she never let it affect her responsibilities as a mother. Diana always put William and Harry first, and during this turbulent period, she became even more dedicated to protecting their spirits and helping them navigate the difficulties that royal life and the separation brought. When William was just 10 and Harry 8, the need for family stability became increasingly urgent. Diana understood that this was a time when her love and attention would help her children thrive regardless of the changes around them. During these months, Diana managed their daily lives, directly involved in their studies and weekend plans. As the royal marriage crumbled, Diana began to be more open about her personal struggles. One of the most shocking moments being on June 29, 1994, when Charles publicly admitted his infidelity. Less than a year later, on November 20th, 1995, Diana responded in her own way through a shocking interview on the show, Panorama of the BBC. In the 38-minute interview, she candidly shared about the challenges of royal life, her struggles with mental health, and her profound feelings of loneliness. However, what moved the public most was not the revelations about Diana's private life, but her heartfelt words about her children. Diana expressed her wish that William and Harry would not only receive a royal education, but also be taught emotional intelligence and understand the realities of ordinary life. Her words stirred a powerful emotional response, attracting over 22 million viewers in the UK alone, sparking a dialogue about royal parenting and the values Diana wanted to instill in her children. However, Diana's candid revelations not only shocked the public, but also disrupted the royal family. The swift and decisive reaction from Queen Elizabeth II, after consulting with advisors, including the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Prime Minister, led to Diana and Charles initiating formal divorce proceedings. Diana, despite having made significant and bold decisions in her personal life, could not help but feel pain at this decision, a sign of the breakdown not only within her family but also in her relationship with the royal family. Diana, even after leaving the royal family and losing her title as princess, remained a devoted mother, and the close relationship between her and her sons, especially William, became even more apparent during the most painful moments of her life. Following her divorce from Prince Charles in 1996, a profound change occurred in Diana's life. Losing the title Her Highness, she not only felt a deep rejection, but also had to confront the inevitable shifts in her relationship with the royal family. However, throughout these turbulent years, Diana found solace and stability in her two sons. Although no longer under the protection of the royal family and her previous support system, Diana continued to dedicate herself to humanitarian work and devoted her time entirely to William and Harry. The organizations she supported, such as Centerpoint Great Ormond Street Hospital and the Leprosy Mission, are testament to her powerful influence. However, during this time, she still faced a profound sense of loneliness, something not everyone could recognize given her glamorous life. In her private letters, Diana shared her anxieties about her safety, particularly when she wrote about a plan to cause an accident that she believed Prince Charles had orchestrated for her. While the authenticity of this letter remains a subject of debate, it reflects a deeply insecure aspect of her life, a constant feeling of being watched and unsafe. Despite facing personal hardships and the pressures of royal life, Diana remained committed to making a difference in the world. Powerful images of her in protective gear walking through a minefield in Angola have become unforgettable historical moments, a testament to her courage and influence in humanitarian work. Diana leveraged her position to draw attention to important issues not only within the royal family, but globally. Diana also consistently instilled in William and Harry a strong sense of responsibility, teaching them that true leadership isn't about power, but about the opportunity to serve others. One of her statements to William when discussing her humanitarian work was, "Use your position to help those who have no voice." These are invaluable lessons, values she wanted to pass on to her sons, and they live on, profoundly influencing William and Harry, even though Diana is no longer with them. On August 31st, 1997, when Diana died in a horrific car accident in Paris, the world was shocked. The final images of William and Harry, then only 15 and 12 years old, walking behind their mother's coffin, showed their profound and indescribable grief. However, even without her, Diana's influence on her sons remains undeniable.
I mean, you really believe that maybe she had just decided to disappear for a time?
For a time, and then that she would call us and we would go and join her.
Visualize the intense moment as Prince William and Harry, two men who have lived their lives in the public eye, find themselves moved to the core by a truth they never saw coming. In an unprecedented move, King Charles has brought to light a confidence kept in the shadows for years, the last most personal wish of the people's princess. This is the moment where historical silence ends and a mother's true legacy is finally realized before the world. The question that lingers in the air is why this profound desire was kept in the shadows for so long. For two brothers who have been separated by a chasm of past grievances and public pressures, this revelation serves as a mirror to their own lives, offering a chance for a new understanding. This goes far beyond a simple headline. It is a cultural earthquake that challenges the stability of the institution, reminding us that the most powerful force in any monarchy is the truth of the human heart. Within the hushed corridors of the king's official residence, shielded from the relentless glare of the media, a pivotal event transpired that would alter the crown's future. In a profound gesture of transparency, King Charles unlocked a personal safe to address the hidden burdens of his royal inheritance. This vault had reportedly remained undisturbed for decades, a silent witness to history. Yet inside lay neither crown jewels nor official decrees, but a simple sealed envelope inscribed with the recognizable script of Princess Diana. Summoning Prince William and Prince Harry to his side, King Charles presented the letter with a voice heavy with emotion. "This is your mother's final legacy. She left this specifically for both of you." A profound hush descended upon the room, marking the end of a 20-year silence. The gravity of the situation spoke for itself. Tucked inside was a handwritten letter by Diana just days before her passing, a document known only to the king and his most loyal advisor until this sudden unveiling. The letter's text unveiled a long-concealed perspective on Diana's final intentions. Her vision for her sons centered on a life unburdened by the rigid expectations of the throne. Rather than focusing on status, wealth, or protocol, her message prioritized their autonomy and personal happiness. After absorbing the words, Harry reportedly noted that her true desire was for them to prioritize their humanity over their royal heritage. To William, the gravity of this encounter felt profoundly intimate. This was far more than a simple piece of correspondence. It represented a final echoing voice from the mother taken from him far too early, a woman whose life was cut short by the very world she sought to transform. I never anticipated the sheer magnitude of the scrutiny. The letter read, describing a life where public obligation and private peace collided in a nearly unendurable struggle. She envisioned a life for them defined by true independence. This disclosure ignited a surge of emotion and brought critical questions to the forefront. Why had Charles withheld this letter for so long? What specific pleas had Diana penned in those concluding sentences? The pursuit of these answers triggered a series of seismic shifts within the palace, threatening to reshape the very foundations of the modern monarchy. The weight of these revelations is becoming overwhelming. They are on the verge of uncovering even deeper truths that could permanently redefine the legacy of the British House of Windsor. Drop a number 2 in the comments and subscribe now, because the upcoming chapters will challenge everything you thought you understood about Princess Diana and the future of the crown. Diana's ultimate ambition was for her sons to experience true independence. The correspondence was short, but its resonance shook the very foundations of the House of Windsor. Drafted in her recognizable hand just weeks before her tragic end, this final message focused neither on wealth nor the acquisition of prestigious titles. It wasn't an act of retaliation against her adversaries. It was a mother's desperate appeal, urgent, visceral, and haunting. As one aide revealed, the letter pleaded, "Allow them to live without fear. Let them define their own lives." These sentiments were reserved for her sons William and Harry, the two individuals who anchored her entire universe. They were the sole reason she weathered every sterile state dinner, every public indignity, and every heartbreak suffered in the shadows. Diana's haunting concern was that the monarchy would recast her boys as marble statues, shimmering remote and hollowed out by centuries of institutional emotional restraint. She had observed the psychological toll it took on Charles and the monarchs who preceded him. The institution didn't instruct its heirs in the art of empathy. Instead, it trained them to master a public facade regardless of the personal sacrifice. Diana sought to break this cycle for her children. "I refuse to let them be imprisoned by a life they didn't choose," she penned. "They deserve to love openly, to experience emotion, and to lead without hiding behind a persona." Within the rigid walls of the palace, that sentiment was revolutionary. It was profoundly moving. It was quintessentially Diana. She understood that one day William would inherit the massive burden of the crown, while Harry, as the second-born, would face the even more complex struggle of being the spare. Diana feared their identities would be molded by institutional duty rather than personal passion, that the weight of the monarchy would eventually erase their authentic spirits. This wasn't a call for an uprising. This was fundamentally a mission of sanctuary. As the global spotlight tightened around the family, their inner confidence began to erode within a haze of isolation and sorrow. While they gradually distanced themselves from those who could offer support, Diana endured what she characterized as the emotional vacuum of the royal institution. She had sought compassion only to find herself constrained by a rigid set of mandates. She reached out for a lifeline and was met with a wall of indifference. Though she became the most scrutinized woman on the planet, she lived in a state of profound invisibility. She was determined to prevent history from repeating itself. Yet what truly stunned William and Harry wasn't simply their mother's final plea. It was the crushing realization that their father had withheld that secret from them for more than 20 years. The correspondence was hermetically sealed, tucked into a confidential file, and submerged beneath layers of bureaucratic red tape within the king's personal vault. The motivation. According to palace confidants, Charles dreaded the impact of Diana's words not merely on the crown's public reputation, but on its delicate internal architecture. If her ultimate desire was for her children to reject the monarchy's grip, how could the centuries-old institution endure? Some insiders suggest Charles feared the message would validate Harry's departure and plant seeds of profound uncertainty in the mind of the future King William. Alternative theories suggest this wasn't an act of guardianship, but rather a display of systemic power and control. Regardless of the motive, the consequences were irreversible. The veil had finally been lifted. Both princes were suddenly forced to grapple with a reality that had been obscured for their entire adult lives. Yet for William, the gravity of the moment was far more profound. It appeared Diana hadn't merely addressed a single letter to both of her children. Back in 2004, during a modest restoration at one of Diana's former residences, a startling find came to light. A long-lost message concealed for decades was found tucked between the leaves of her private photo collection. This document, wholly unique within the annals of royal history, was written exclusively for Prince William. It bypassed all state channels, serving as an intimate rather than a formal or official decree. This was a profoundly intimate exchange, a candid and heartfelt dialogue between a mother and her child. Upon reading those passages, William was reportedly left reeling. The text unveiled a perspective that remained obscured to the public, Diana's acute understanding of the immense weight her eldest son would eventually be forced to shoulder. "The day will come when the crown is yours," she penned. Yet what followed was neither a summons to service nor a lecture on sovereign obligation. Instead, it was a poignant appeal. "Promise me you will protect the child you once were." In those few words, Diana's voice bridged the gap of decades. It was a mother's warning about the inheritance awaiting him, the relentless scrutiny, the demand for conformity, and the slow erosion of identity that so often accompanies the throne. The intrigue surrounding this correspondence deepens when analyzing its specific timeline. It surfaced not during the chaotic 1990s, but amidst the simmering tension that preceded the public dissolution of the royal marriage. One must wonder, did Charles truly hold these convictions at that stage? Was he reaching out to a high-ranking ecclesiastical advisor, or perhaps a mentor following in the footsteps of the legendary Lord Mountbatten? Within the palace, some contend this was no mere slip of the tongue, but a calculated emotional maneuver. These written words have compelled historians to reconsider the monarchy's official timeline. It raises a haunting question: could this be a nascent confession of something far more significant than previously imagined? Are we witnessing the unraveling of a sophisticated institutional concealment that has spanned decades? Unverified theories that were once relegated to the shadows have suddenly resurfaced with a new intensity. Once viewed as mere speculation, these questions about the royal succession have gained new traction following the reveal of the king's private papers. This leaves us with a haunting question: is there a hidden chapter of royal history that the establishment is not yet ready for the world to read? Everything changed with the unveiling of those hidden words. A scenario that once felt impossible now seems like a logical explanation for a series of historic anomalies. In the early 80s, Diana's health was often a subject of official concern, yet the details remained shrouded in ambiguity. We are now learning of hushed discussions between medical experts and royal staff that went far beyond public knowledge. If the rift in the marriage was already widening, could the crown have orchestrated a secret solution to ensure the future of the throne? The crown possesses both the influence and the incentive. All that is missing is a veil of silence. Charles's haunting observation, "not hers from the beginning," casts a chilling new light on the past. In this scenario, Diana may have been recruited to fulfill a public role, raising a child to whom she had no biological tie. This perspective offers a potential explanation for both the hidden correspondence and her years of quiet suffering. Some historians now argue that this is more than just conjecture. It could be the key to understanding the profound emotional void and the lifelong sense of displacement that has defined Harry's journey. If Charles was attempting to voice a conflict he had grappled with for decades, it would explain the long-standing friction noted by those closest to the crown. While their public appearances were governed by rigid formality, a distinct lack of warmth became increasingly undeniable as Harry reached adulthood. While some dismiss this as a mere generational gap, insiders perceive a deeper pattern, a systemic avoidance of vulnerability. As one former palace official observed, Charles often appeared hesitant to bridge the emotional divide with Harry, as if he were caught between a desire to connect and an uncertainty of his own right to do so. The House of Windsor has long functioned within a realm of rigid protocols and unspoken legacies. They maintain a fortress around their private hardships, demanding a uniform silence from every member of the lineage. Historically, they have resisted evolution, anchoring themselves to ancient rituals while shunning any public display of vulnerability. However, Diana chose a different journey. She gave a voice to her suffering courageously, identifying the solitude she faced and exposing the staggering weight of the crown, a reality no one had previously ventured to describe. It was this very authenticity that cemented her place in the public's heart. Prince Edward, observing with his characteristic composure, watched the internal struggle play out. He saw the royal establishment faltering to maintain its pace, while Diana's vulnerability forged a connection with the masses that the crown simply could not replicate. Her honesty did more than just illuminate her private battles. It cast a harsh spotlight on the increasingly obsolete foundations of the monarchy itself. For decades, the House of Windsor had meticulously curated their public persona. They maintained a glossed and remote exterior, yet Diana proved impossible to regulate or suppress. Her profound authenticity, which captured the global imagination, emerged as the ultimate danger to the traditional royal order. She evoked a visceral, deeply human response, transforming her into more than a defiant royal. She became an existential threat to the very foundations of the throne. The more the establishment attempted to muffle her voice, the more evident it became that their hold on the public's loyalty was slipping away. Within the walls of Buckingham Palace, an impenetrable silence has taken hold, a quiet that offers no clarity and admits no fault. Behind the vacant corridors and hushed high-stakes meetings, a palpable sense of dread is mounting. Insiders suggest the true fear isn't just this single revelation, but the specter of what else remains hidden. A royal source has confirmed that a specialized crisis management team has been mobilized, reminiscent of the unit deployed during the Sussex's landmark Oprah interview. Their objective is clear: contain the leaks, mitigate the fallout, and retrieve the original dossier. Rumors are now swirling that additional correspondence may exist, letters intended for Diana William or Harry. If even one more document comes to light, the consequences could be catastrophic, potentially triggering a legal and constitutional crisis that challenges the very laws of succession and royal inheritance. Prince William is a man who carries the weight of the truth. He has guarded this secret for decades. If he were indeed a silent participant in this concealment, it wouldn't be just a family matter, it would be a betrayal with the potential to fracture their bond permanently. The burden of this knowledge is immense. As the face of the modern throne, William has been meticulously prepared for leadership since infancy. However, following the revelation of this letter, his long-standing silence has begun to invite scrutiny and spark uncertainty. If this secret was indeed part of the palace's inner circle, it's highly likely that William has lived with it for many years. Prince William and Prince Harry, enduring figures in the global spotlight, have navigated their share of public triumphs and private tribulations. Yet no hardship parallels the devastating loss of their mother, Princess Diana. For the brothers, her passing was more than a personal tragedy. It was a seismic shift that fundamentally altered their trajectories. In truth, the once unbreakable bond between William and Harry began to subtly erode